We have made it through a couple days after the Chicago Bulls played their first preseason game. And there's been a lot of discussion about what the squad looked like, what the lineup looked like. So I'm here to just have a open discussion. Is it too early for the Chicago Bulls to consider a lineup change? Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac. Gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. We appreciate those guys, those ladies and gentlemen that's joining us for the first time. Hey, if you enjoy it, make sure you lock in and subscribe. We appreciate you over here on Shy Boys Podcast. We're going to keep this thing rolling and running. And plus, we got some live calls coming for y'all as well as the season continues to move on. But look, in that first preseason game versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Chicago Bulls, you know what I'm saying? They did come out with a victory, but it is preseason, and the starters for the Chicago Bulls, they didn't necessarily play the entire game. But the lineup that was out there, with Vooch, Zach, Kobe, Giddey, and P. Will, it had a lot of Bulls fans scratching their head. I'm one of the ones that's on the side of, hey, it is preseason. This is a new iteration of the Chicago Bulls. These guys are just now coming together. Let's give it a little bit of time. But I do understand the other side of the discussion when people say that, hey, the Chicago Bulls should be trying out different guys in the lineup to see who gives us the best chance to win the game. If we remember correctly, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, AK and Billy Donovan said that we want to win as much games as possible. So I think that this discussion is a fair one to have, though I do believe that the Chicago Bulls should allow this starting five a little bit more time. It doesn't hurt to try out new things. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't hurt to try out new things before you get into the regular season. That lineup of Zach, Kobe, Giddey, P. Will, and Vooch, it looked all right, I guess. It looked all right. It was some things that we can point out that was really, you know what I'm saying, something that we paid attention to. That we was like, hey, if this continues, the Bulls ain't winning much. You know what I'm saying? But there was some moments to it. It was like, hey, if the Bulls can get this to work, they're gonna win some games. You know what I'm saying? It was still up in air on how many games, but the Chicago Bulls at the end of it, they still should be able to win some games. But when we talk about it is just the preseason. We're gonna establish that right now. It is just the preseason, but that starting five, they combined to go for 23 of 50 for 46% from the field. Okay, not too shabby. It's cool, okay. But then from the three-point line, this starting five went 4 of 18 for 22%. And for my guys that look at the plus minus, I know it probably doesn't necessarily mean much for this particular game since it is the preseason and the starters are not playing all of their minutes that they will typically play. But none of these guys had a positive plus minus. Take that for what you will. You know what I'm saying? Take that for what you will. But with the guys that started in the lineup, Kobe White, he looked like he was ready to rock. Zach LaVine looked like he's still capable of ready to rock. Josh Giddey looked like he's capable, but there was still some iffiness around it. Nikola Vucevic, a lot of iffiness around it. Patrick Williams, a lot of I'm willing to allow him some time because I do want us to remember that this guy ain't played basketball in months because he was dealing with that injury. You know what I'm saying? We can say the workouts, we can mention the mini camps and stuff like that, but in real NBA action, regardless if it's preseason or not, Patrick Williams has not been around for some time. So I'm gonna allow him a little bit more time, but I will say this. It looked a little bit shaky. You know what I'm saying? Especially with a lot of us calling for Patrick Williams to be a little bit more aggressive and whatnot. But I will push back and say that it is just the first preseason game. But this is the time to make those moves. This is the time to see who can give you the best chance of winning. You know what I'm saying? Because the offense, that started five, you ain't going to be able to spread the floor, hit the three. You're going to put yourself in some trouble. That defensive side, you don't get back in transition versus these teams that want to play at a faster pace similar to you, you're going to be in trouble. And that's what we've seen. But my first question I asked for the change of authority or to see change come for the Chicago Bulls is, do you look at Jalen Smith with the other 4 starters that we previously mentioned? Now, when we seen Jalen Smith in the game, he's a capable rebounder. He looked like he was able to deflect a couple shots. I believe he had got himself 1 block shot as well. Y'all correct me down below on that one. But at the end of the day, this was a guy who was able to run up the floor fast enough in transition to slow things down for the guys that's trying to get a basket on the Chicago Bulls. That was one of the major differences from him and Nikola Vucevic. If we give Nikola Vucevic some type of credit, we can say that, hey, his passing ability will open up some things for the other guys. But then I push back with the question is Jalen Smith not capable of doing some of those same things? Is Jalen Smith not comfortable of doing some of those same things? Because if we saying that he's not, then what was the point of bringing him on? You know what I'm saying? Like to provide you with some depth on the bench as a big, but not necessarily just limited to just the depth. We need him to be productive. And I hope that this is one of those situations. I've been saying it all off season, that I hope that Billy Donovan is giving this young guy a fair shot to win the starting job. We don't know if that's been placed out there. Yeah, I don't recall Billy Donovan ever saying that it's an open competition right now for the center spot. I don't recall that. But what I was told is that these guys are trying to win the best games. So does Jalen Smith right now give this starting lineup without making any other changes the best chance to win? If you asking me straight up, Bobby, you know I'm going to keep it a buck and put it on wax. I'm going to say Jalen Smith gives the Chicago Bulls a better chance to win in the starting lineup than Nikola Vucevic does. That's just how I'm looking at it early. Another thing that I'm coming to and asking the question is should the Bulls consider starting Ayo Dosunmu over Josh Giddey? It's an interesting one because it's one of those things to where you look at Josh Giddey and you say, hey, this is a guy that comes in. He has some talent. Does he have to tap in other parts of his game like his three-point shooting? Absolutely. Like his defense? Absolutely. But there are some things that he does bring to the Chicago Bulls that you've seen throughout the game that was like, okay, we can make this work as long as that, you know what I'm saying, my guy is making it work. You know what I mean? And that's driving to the basket. That's the passing ability. That's the setting up for others. Things like that. And the problem is when it comes down to it is when you're not able to set things up. When a defense is loading up on Kobe White or Zach LaVine, can Josh Giddey hit the three? Can Josh Giddey get to the paint and draw contact? That is going to be some of the biggest things. And when you compare that to Ayo Dosunmu, you ain't no question if Ayo Dosunmu is a good three-point shooter. There's no question on that. There's no question if Ayo Dosunmu is a solid defender. There's no question on that. You know what I'm saying? Those are some of the questions that we have about Josh Giddey. So it's an interesting one. I don't know if Billy Donovan's interested in starting an Ayo Dosunmu, Zach LaVine, and Kobe White next to P. Will and Nikola Vucevic. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And just the thought of it right now is it seemed like it's a bit redundant to what's already taken. What's already taken place. But we'll continue on and talk about some more things after this. My next question is, should the Bulls look to start Montes Buzelis in the lineup over Patrick Williams? Now, I know there's going to be some people on here, including myself, that mentioned the weight that Josh Giddey has. But this is a guy that has been, but if we keeping it real, this is a guy that has been playing basketball all his life. All his life. He played in the G League last year. There's no reason to send him back down to the G League this year. If you ask me, if you send him to the G League, it's malpractice. It's malpractice. Not even going to lie to you. But when we talk about the aggression and what we've seen from Montes Buzelis, and you compare it just with a small sample size in the preseason, the more aggressive player looks like Montes Buzelis. The more comfortable player looks like Montes Buzelis. It is game one in the preseason. Montes Buzelis for sure could get rattled. I don't believe that's going to happen, but I've seen it happen before in players that you didn't think that it was going to happen in. Paul George. Once Paul George was that man up in Indiana, when he went on to the other teams, I didn't think he was going to remove himself from great playoff production. He did. So those things happen. But what I will say is that Montes Buzelis, the way he talks, the way he moves, is a bit different than what we've seen out of Paul George. If most of you guys have kept an eye on him, but that's an interesting thing because Montes Buzelis and his aggression is what the Bulls have been asking for Patrick Williams for 4 seasons now. This guy is already showing it in game 1. Now, it can wane. Again, I want to mention that it is a small sample size, but your mentality can help you overcome a lot of things. My man's Tom Brady said, you ain't always got to be the best talent in the room. You just have to be the most consistent. We don't know who's going to be the most consistent right now. It is just one game. But if you ask me, Bobby, go ahead and be a better man. Who do you believe will be more consistent in the starting lineup? It'll be Montes Buzelis. It'll be Montes Buzelis. Because even in that short amount of time, in that small sample size, we see Montes Buzelis defend, get a block shot, run the offense, and, help and create for others, have a mid-range floater with a mid-range jumper, try to dunk on some people's head. That stuff is what you can coach up some of that stuff. But the aggressiveness to it is something you can't coach up. The Bulls have been trying to pull aggressiveness out of Patrick Williams for 4 seasons now. The next thing is, how serious are the Bulls about winning? You know what I'm saying? That's when you talk about the lineup change, how serious are you about winning? When it comes to the Montes and the Patrick Williams discussion, do you play politics in this and say, hey, we paying this guy $90 million, he got to start? I understand that you have to start Zach LaVine because he's the best player on the team as it currently stands. That could very well change as the season progresses and years go on, no matter, depending on how long he stays here. And if you don't want him to stay here for the long term, you got to build up that trade value again. He ain't sitting. Kobe White, this is your next best player. He ain't sitting. So how serious are the Bulls right now? Because you are entering a time to where you're telling us you want to win as many games, you want to embrace the youth movement. Are you going to give guys a fair shot? Are you going to give guys a fair shot? Now, one of the starting lineup that I think might be a bit intriguing or something that I would really, really consider testing out is Ayo, Zach LaVine, Kobe White, Montes Buzelis, Nikola Vucevic. Or you swap that with Jalen Smith. I don't know how conducive that is to winning, but it's something that I'm willing to try out. And if you don't want to gut the entire lineup like that, consider Patrick Williams moving to the bench in favor of Montes Buzelis. Again, I don't know if that's going to be on the table for the Chicago Bulls. And to be honest with you, if I'm looking and letting you know what I believe Billy Donovan will do, I don't think Montes Buzelis will crack the starting lineup at some point in this preseason unless he's sitting his starters. It can go either way. But I think that when you consider a lineup change, it doesn't necessarily hurt the team. You're just trying to see who gives you the best opportunity to win. And I hope that it's just a fair shot. I'm not saying you got to go ahead and swap 3 players out of the lineup. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to do that. But if a center changes your belief in what the squad can do, let's explore that option. If Patrick Williams is one of those options that you want to explore to try to move and see if Montes Buzelis can give you more energy, more consistency, more aggressiveness that Patrick Williams is still trying to pull out, I'm willing to explore that option. Now, again, I want to preface it that it is just a small sample size and it is just the preseason. I'm just anxious to see if Billy Donovan is going to stand on business. Stand on business. Don't just settle for what you've seen in game 1 and say, hey, we got a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? We had a lot of work on, and this is how we're going to rock. Cool. We do have a lot of work on. We do have some things we have to tune up on. But if we come out in game 2 and Nikola Vucevic is still getting killed in transition and in a half-court offense, do you think it's just going to stop in preseason? No. So that means let's explore these options. You know what I'm saying? And even if Vucevic does start, how long is the leash before Billy Donovan's like, all right, I've seen enough. Vooch is not going to be a good defensive option for this team. Let me insert the young guy, see if he can give me something else. You know what I mean? So it'll be very, very interesting. But I don't think it's too early to consider a lineup change. It's just for the purposes of experimenting. Experiment with some of these stuff, with these lineups and these rotations while you have it. We seen some nice lineups come out. Again, one of my favorite lineups came out from the Bulls was Josh Giddey, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, Kobe White, and Vooch. That was a nice lineup. The same thing can be said about when Billy had Vooch out there, Zach LaVine, Giddey, P. Will, and Montes all on the floor at the same time. That was a productive lineup, at least from what it looked like. I'll have to check the numbers, but at least from just watching, you know what I'm saying, without keeping track of points and everything, it looked all right. You know what I'm saying? It looked better than what our starting five looked like. I tell you that. But it's a lot of things to be excited about, y'all, and we'll keep this conversation going. But down below, let me know. Do you think it's too early to be talking about a lineup change? And what lineup change will you make for the Chicago Bulls to have the best success that they could possibly have this season? Because that is it for me, ladies and gentlemen. So leave your thoughts and your comments down below. Before you get up out of here, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn your notification bell on, because we dropping this daily content. We giving y'all updates on the Chicago Bulls game, and we are going live for live calls, live play-by-play done by Shy Bulls Podcast very own CDubb. So tune in. But anyway, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode. Make sure y'all always see red, and y'all already know I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac. Gang.